It was supposed to be a normal flight for John Cena, a quick flight from Los Angeles to New York, no delays, no problems. But this morning at LAX International Airport, things went wrong. Cena, dressed in a tracksuit and sunglasses, entered the VIP check-in area, expecting the standard express service. But things escalated when the check-in agent informed him that there was a problem with his ticket. According to the system, his seat had been given to another passenger due to a reservation slip. "What do you mean, no seat?" Cena's voice, usually calm, sounded irritated. The manager explained the situation, but John, who was in a hurry for an important meeting, was not going to put up with it. Tensions rose when he was asked to wait another 20 minutes to resolve the problem. Then an explosion of emotions occurred. "Are you serious?" Cena leaned his hands on the check-in counter. "I'm John Cena. I should be sitting in the front row, not waiting for you to figure it out." Passengers around me started filming what was happening, and the staff nervously looked at each other. Airport security was already approaching the scene. Airport employees tried to calm Cena down, but he was already on edge. His voice echoed throughout the check-in area, and passers-by were filming everything on their phones. "I need to get on this flight. Do you understand who I am?" John pointed his finger at the manager's badge, as if remembering the name. Airport security finally came closer. One of the employees, a tall man with a serious expression, politely but firmly suggested that Cena step aside to clarify the details. "Are you kidding?" Cena grabbed his phone and showed his reservation. "Here's my ticket, here's the confirmation. But it seems I'm invisible here." Someone in the crowd couldn't help but make a joke. "Well, we don't see John Cena, do we?" This caused laughter among the passengers, but John was in no mood for memes. His eyes narrowed, his fists clenched, and it seemed that a little more, and he would start performing according to WWE rules right at the check-in counter. The staff tried to offer him an alternative flight, but Cena became even more angry. "Alternative? I need this plane, I'm not going to wait 3 hours because of your mistake." The tension reached its peak when one of the airport employees pressed the police call button. People around held their breath. What would happen next? The situation was escalating with every minute. John Cena, usually poised and charismatic, now looked as if he was ready to arrange a real ring right in the middle of the terminal. When 2 security officers approached him, the crowd around him fell silent. "Sir, we ask you to calm down and move away from the check-in area," one of the guards spoke calmly, but with a noticeable degree of alertness. "I'm absolutely calm." Cena exploded, gesturing in a way that nearly knocked over the check-in counter. "They screwed up. I just want my seat on the plane." The officers exchanged glances. It was one thing to deal with aggressive passengers, and quite another to deal with an angry 6-foot-tall athlete. The shift manager, a thin middle-aged woman holding a tablet in her hands, intervened. She quickly checked something in the system, then looked up at Cena. "Mr. Cena, your problem is solved. We can upgrade you to business class for this flight, your seat is already reserved." There was a pause in the air. John looked from the manager to the guards, then to the onlookers filming him on their phones. He sighed heavily, ran his hand over his face, and nodded briefly. "I'll be right there," he muttered, his anger somewhat subdued. Cena took his boarding pass, glared at the airport staff again, and headed for security. The crowd parted ways in front of him, and someone behind him jokingly exclaimed, "We thought he'd just walk away and never be seen again." Cena didn't even turn around in response. He just wanted to get to New York, without any more mishaps. But who knew if he might be in for another scandal on the plane? John Cena cleared security, still seething with anger. He took his seat in business class, took a deep breath, and tried to calm himself. But fate clearly wasn't going to leave him alone that day. As the plane gained altitude, a flight attendant approached him, a young woman with bright red lipstick and a nervous smile. "Mr. Cena, I'm sorry to bother you, but we've got a little situation." John rolled his eyes. "So what now? Is my seat taken again?" The flight attendant looked embarrassed. "Not really. One of the economy passengers found out you were on board, and now he's insisting you take a selfie with him." Cena blinked in surprise. "Selfie? Are you serious?" "Yeah, and he's keeping up. We tried to explain that you were resting, but he's a WWE fan, and, well, he said he wouldn't back down." John sighed heavily and looked out the window. "Okay. Let him come over, let's take a quick photo, and that's it." A minute later, a burly man in a "You Can't See Me" t-shirt approached him. His eyes were shining with delight. "Dude! This is the real John Cena." He jumped up with joy. "Dude, I've been watching you since I was a kid. You're my hero." "Thanks, bro," Cena nodded, forcing himself to smile. "Let's take a photo." The fan pulled out his phone, but suddenly stopped and squinted slyly. "Listen, maybe you'll throw me over your shoulder like I'm in the ring?" "Well, easy." Here John's patience finally snapped. "Are you kidding?" The fan backed away, realizing he had crossed the line. The flight attendant quickly intervened. "Okay, mister, it's time for you to get back to your seat." The fan, a little scared, quickly took a picture and ran back to economy class. John ran a hand over his face. "Just let me get to New York without incident." He closed his eyes, trying to sleep, but how could he be sure that this was the end of his ordeal? John Cena finally tried to doze off. But less than 10 minutes later, he heard a loud whisper behind him. "Is that really him? I've heard he's rude in real life." John gritted his teeth. He purposely didn't react, but the conversation continued. "My friend works at LAX, and she said he threw a tantrum there. A typical famous duck." Cena slowly turned his head and saw two women in their 30s, who were looking at him, trying to pretend that they weren't talking about him. "You know I can hear all this, right?" he said in a low but clear voice. One of them pretended that nothing had happened. "Oh, sorry, we were just discussing, well, what happened at the airport." Cena tilted his head. "Great. Now you can talk to me directly." The woman was confused, but her friend suddenly smiled cheekily. "Why not? A grown man making a scene over a seat on an airplane and then going off on his fans? Not very professional." Cena took a deep breath so as not to say something he would later regret. But the woman continued. "And anyway, not everyone here is your fan. Some of us fly to work, not to listen to the scandals on board." This was already a blatant provocation. The crowd of passengers began to pay attention. Some picked up their phones, anticipating a new dose of drama. "Look," Cena said, crossing his arms over his chest. "If you want hype, I can just ignore you and you'll have to find a new victim." The woman wasn't expecting that answer. She blinked in confusion. "Or," John continued, leaning closer, "we can go out to the center of the cabin and I'll give you a little wrestling demonstration right here." It worked. The woman paled, silently returned to her seat and looked out the window. John Cena sighed again and leaned back in his chair. Finally, silence. For long? It seemed that after the fight with the annoying female passengers, John Cena could finally breathe. But this day simply was not going to let him go without another test. As soon as he closed his eyes again, a drunk man from the economy section burst into the business class. His t-shirt was unbuttoned, and in his hand he held a plastic cup of alcohol. "Cinea," he said in a hoarse voice, trying to keep his balance. "Dude, I need to talk to you." John slowly opened his eyes and rolled them back. "No, you don't need to," he replied, without changing his posture. "Dude, you're a fighter. Come on, let's fight. John frowned. Bro, sit down in your seat until I help you do it. But the drunk guy was already in a rage. He made an awkward lunge forward and grabbed John by the shoulder. In a moment, everything happened, as if in slow motion. Cena stood up reflexively, grabbed the drunk by the hand and, with a light movement, put him back in his chair. But to those around him, it looked like he had performed a real wrestling move. The plane fell silent. And then, loud applause. Wow! John Cena just did a body slam in the middle of business class. I was filming. This is going to go viral. Even the flight attendants didn't know how to react. The drunk seemed to sober up for a second. He blinked, realizing that he had just been delicately placed in his chair by John Cena himself. Dude, you're cool, he muttered, closing his eyes. Two flight attendants immediately ran over to take the unfortunate fan back to economy class. Cena sat down again, made himself comfortable in his chair, closed his eyes, and muttered. If anyone else comes near, I'm jumping out of this plane. Fortunately, after that, even the most daring passengers decided not to bother him anymore. 3 hours later, the plane finally landed in New York. John, having descended the gangway, turned on his phone. He was notified that he was trending on Twitter, and the video with the body slam had already collected millions of views. So, another scandal, he muttered under his breath and, putting on his hood, headed for the exit. And, perhaps, next time, he would just go by car.